Hey guys, okay, we are going to talk about something that affects so many people, and that's anxiety and depression. And oftentimes we lump them together, but they are two separate conditions with separate sets of symptoms. A lot of times, though, people can feel them back and forth or at the same time together. So it can be somewhat confusing on how to remedy that and what it is that you should be taking or what you could be doing to improve those symptoms. So let's talk about anxiety first. From a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, this is oftentimes due to the heart, a deficiency with the heart. And if there's enough fear, that oftentimes can be connected to the kidneys. So we want to be able to support those areas, but always looking at the root cause. Now, one of the things that is universally so helpful can be CBD, and we've talked about that in its application with a number of conditions, but that's because there's endocannabinoid receptors on almost every cell of the body, so it's really useful in helping bring and restore balance to the body. Now, with anxiety specifically, valerian root is probably one of my favorites to go to. This is something that can be used in conjunction with St. John's wort, which we'll talk about as it is more connected to depression symptoms, but those two together are incredible, especially if you're somebody that finds yourself having debilitating anxiety at night. And I do feel that that's probably the most common time of day is when people are trying to wind down and then that anxiety and those fears start to well up. So valerian root can be so phenomenal at helping you unwind and really promote restorative sleep. So look into CBD. You can do that morning and night. You want to go based off of the guided the dosing that's on the bottle because it varies from one product to the next. But valerian, oftentimes in the form of a tea, can be really restorative at night, especially when it comes to sleep. Now, magnesium is one of my favorite go-tos. I'm going to show you one. There's so many forms of magnesium. This one is L-threonate. So you may have glycinate or citrate. There's a number of different forms of magnesium. Some of them promote more of the muscle relaxation. This one really operates on the nervous system. So this is going to help calm your mind down. And this particular one is in the form of a powder. So it can just be added to water and it's very easy to just consume. It doesn't really have much of a flavor. So consider using magnesium in conjunction with some of those herbals. Now, chamomile is additionally an incredible herb that can be used topically. It can be diffused. Find things that just work for you. If you're drawn to lavender and chamomile are great to be used together with a carrier oil. You can apply it topically, or again, you can diffuse it. Start these practices early on so you can set yourself up for success at night. So if you find that after dinner, that's usually when you start to have the racing thoughts or those fears and things that you maybe just can't even pinpoint, start setting yourself up by limiting blue light and diffusing oils that make you in a more relaxed state. Even if a bath can help, sometimes that's a really great way to set your body up for a balanced nervous system. Now, foods you would want to avoid are things that are going to stimulate you even more. So caffeine and sugar and processed foods, those are not going to be foods that are going to serve you if you're suffering from some of these mood and cognitive disorders or symptoms. So stay away from things that are going to amp you up a little bit more. Sometimes even dark chocolate can be great, but for people with anxiety, it can give you heart palpitations. It can really start to stimulate and drive more activity in the brain, and that's not what we're looking for. Things like leafy greens, foods that are rich in omega fatty acids. I've got a fish oil here. This is actually cod liver oil. It's one of my absolute favorites. This one's by Rosita, but really good in terms of its omega-6, omega-3 fatty acid profile, and very rich in vitamin A, vitamin D. All of these nutrients are so important for your gut health, and they're important for your liver and so many other organ systems that directly connect to your brain and how you feel, right? We know that the gut produces neurotransmitters, so that's sending signals to the brain. So the more that we can provide our body as far as nutrients, the better we're going to set ourselves up for feeling our best when it comes to our mood down the road. Now, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about depression, because depression affects so many people, and it's different than anxiety in that it can just rob you from really feeling joy, for feeling motivation, for feeling excitement. And there are a number of reasons why that can happen, a lot of it being due to food, chemical toxicity, environmental exposures. We have pesticides. There are things everywhere in our environment that are disrupting our hormones and our endocrine system. So it's important to look at what is potentially driving your depression in the beginning. CBD, again, would be an appropriate universal thing that I feel like so many people can reap the benefits from. Even children can use CBD. Make sure you know what you're working with as far as dosage. But again, it's so safe if you get a really quality product. Now, I talked about valerian, and valerian's great for depression, but one of my other favorites is St. John's wort. Those two together are an incredible duo. What I love about St. John's wort is it's been studied clinically and very effective for depression specifically. So this is something you would need to take between 4 and 6 weeks continuously to start seeing those effects. So make sure that if you're trying some herbals, there are a few that you may take it for 5 days, and if you don't feel the needle moving immediately, it's not because it's not working. It's just that there's this compounding effect of doing it over and over and over again that your nervous system really starts to be able to utilize the benefits of it. So give it some time, but use it continuously for 6 weeks. But this is one of the most heavily studied, and it's studied even in conventional medicine to be as effective or very, very effective in relation or in comparison to drugs that are targeted for depression. The one caveat I will say with St. John's wort is that there are some contraindications with other medications. It has been shown to speed up the metabolic effects of clearing certain prescription drugs from your system. So if you're on immunosuppressants or any other type of medication, blood thinners, things like that, you would want to talk to your medical provider before you started bringing St. John's wort into your home. This is the one that I have in our home. We've used it before. Another one that I'll mention is ashwagandha. So ashwagandha is, obviously we've talked about it in a number of different applications. This specific one is for kids, but it's an adaptogen. So it's helping you modulate that stress response. So a lot of times anxiety and depression comes from different triggers in our environment. So maybe it's not an invisible trigger, but it might be something like financial stress or relationship stress. There may be some conditions or circumstances going on in your life that are driving these feelings of nervousness and anxiousness. So use ashwagandha on a regular basis too, and you can do it in tincture form. There's a lot of different herbs that are found in different forms. So if you're not one to drink tea, then that's fine. You can find almost all of them in tincture form. And then obviously there's also oils. This is another form of these different types of herbs. So this is what's beautiful, is that you can kind of mix and match and use whatever it is that you feel like really supports you in the best way, what you know you'll actually stick with, because I think that's one of the hardest parts is you can get all of the things and then you just kind of fall off the wagon and then think, oh, I'm still not feeling better. So get what you need and then start working with a rhythm of incorporating that in your day-to-day. Now, ginkgo biloba is another one I don't have right here, but ginkgo is phenomenal at also helping the nervous system and the brain and blood flow specifically to the brain. So you can get that in an herbal tea. You can also combine a lot of these. So I'll show in another video, but you can buy loose leaf teas. If you can find an apothecary or a natural herbal store, you can go in and talk to somebody there and buy small amounts of different types of herbs, and then you can blend them yourself, put them in a tea, steep them, and consume them that way. Otherwise, you would be buying separate tinctures, which is also totally doable. But sometimes people like the process of making teas and making different blends for themselves, ones that they find work the best. Now, chamomile, ylang ylang, and lavender are also great oils. So those oils can be diffused, and like I said, smell them. Put a couple drops in your hands, cup your hands over your face, and really take some deep breaths. How does it make you feel? If it's not something that resonates with you, then that's maybe not an oil that's the most therapeutic. But this is one of the greatest ways. I even have kids do this, and I'll put 2 drops of an oil in their hands and just allow them to smell it. And I ask them, what do you feel? You know, how does that make you feel? And sometimes they'll say, oh, it makes me feel happy, or it reminds me of something. And that's one of the therapeutic benefits of oils, is that it can trigger different responses, certain memories or things that you remember that elicit feelings of joy or peace or happiness. And so the more you can encourage that response from your body, the more you're going to get in that parasympathetic, and you're going to be able to unwind and allow your body to heal and adapt and then overcome the symptoms that have been plaguing you maybe over and over and over again. Now, things like prayer, walks outside, nature, we talk about this all the time, but for anxiety and depression, it can be so good to just connect with nature. Because we know that these things are therapeutic. We're using nature, right, in our medicine cabinet, but being outside in that and smelling things like the leaves and the grass and, the salt air if you live by the ocean, whatever that looks like for you, can be so healing to your body. So don't underestimate that value. Even feeling the grass beneath your feet is so therapeutic, right? This grounding action that really anchors and roots your body, because we look around and there's just blue light and there's noise and all of these things that are just constantly stimulating us, even on the surface when we don't necessarily think it's bothering us. So as far as foods goes, let's talk about foods a little bit more. We talked about things like sugar and processed foods. Those obviously we want off the table. But things like coconut oil, think of fatty acids, right? Your brain is primarily fat. So we want, and all of the nerves are coated and bathed in fat. So you want rich fats in your nutrition on your plate to be able to support your nervous system. So instead of more of the just quick carbs or refined foods or things that are maybe on the go, think of things that are like butter and coconut oil. Bone broth is great. We talk about all of the nourishing effects for your gut for bone broth, but these things can be so nourishing, not only to balance blood sugar, help your adrenals, support your brain, but it's going to allow you to just stay in a deeper state of parasympathetic, because again, you're not on that blood sugar roller coaster. You're not having wild sugar cravings and then you're crashing from it and then you're reaching for the caffeine or you're reaching for the wine, whatever it is. It's almost like this gas pedal and brake system where we're throwing our foot on the gas in the morning with caffeine, and then at the end of the day we just expect ourselves to be able to hit the pillow and fall asleep, and that doesn't happen. And so then we think, well, we need something to assist with that. Maybe it's alcohol or wine or some form of alcohol, and we think that that's going to help us, but in the end it's actually creating more toxicity in our body that we're having to manage, so our sleep is then affected. So you see this downstream effect that this can have, just these singular choices one after another, and it's so important that you evaluate whether or not it's serving your health, because if it's not, there are options, there are things that you can fill in those gaps, and it's not a matter of choosing one thing over another and having to always sacrifice. It's about finding things that really fill you up, that restore you, that you can get excited about, and that you can actively participate in doing day to day and look forward to it. So I hope this has helped you when we talk about anxiety and depression. I know this is a very personal topic, and for some people it's something that's been debilitating for some time. So I want you to know that, one, you're not alone. We have all experienced those seasons and valleys, but know that there are incredible things that you could be supporting your body with. And I hope that these tangibles can kind of get you started, but keep exploring the different options and then keep trying different things, because there is a secret formula for your body. It's just a matter of figuring out what it responds to the best. So if it worked for somebody else, it may work for you. It may work for you with something else, but just keep your mind open and keep exploring those options, and know that your body is always showing up for you and doing its best to heal. You've just got to get on the same team with it.